Open the blinds, let your light be seen. You can't know all the darkness. You can't carry all that pain, but you can say, come on home again. You know you don't know just how bad it got. And you can't walk a mile in their shoes.
Hello and welcome to Southern Songs and Stories on IamAVL. I'm your host, Joe Kendrick, from beautiful downtown Asheville, North Carolina, in Echo Mountain Studios with the IamAVL crew. Thanks very much, Scott Reese, Josh Blake, Guy Newton running the controls today. And we are live for a special edition of Southern Songs and Stories all about women in the roots music scene here in Western North Carolina. And we'll be talking with Natalya Weinstein of Zoe and Cloyd, Amanda Platt from Amanda and the Honeycutters, and then we've also got bringing up the rear,
Hannah Kaminer.
Hannah Kaminer, who is playing live tonight in Black Mountain. We got a lot to go over today in a roughly half-hour time, and we had Hannah's music introducing the show, Hannah with Set a Table, and we'll also hear music from Amanda and Natalya as we go through. So starting it off in the broadest sense, let's talk about you and a little bit about your music. Natalya?
My name is Natalya Zoe Weinstein, and I live here in Asheville, and I play with a band called Zoe and Cloyd with my husband, John Cloyd Miller, and we play bluegrass, old-time, original, Americana, all different kinds of music.
My name is Amanda Platt, and I also live here in Asheville. I have a band called the Honeycutters. Been doing that about 10 years, and I'm a songwriter, fit into the Americana country genre, I suppose.
And I'm Hannah Kaminer, and I also am a songwriter in the Americana country folk category. And I'm from this area, and I've been playing around here about 4 or 5 years. So,
tell us in the broadest sense where you start from being a woman in the local music scene. What is harder about being where you're at and what you're doing? Hannah, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I think, coming at it starting in my mid-20s and coming at it already having experience as a young professional, as a teacher, I think that I had a little bit of a leg up in terms of presentation, trying to realize this is not just an art. You also have to have a lot of business skills to run your act or to run your band. And but I think that it was a little disappointing when I started and realized that a lot of people want you to have a certain presentation or come across a certain way, the dress, the boots, the bright red lipstick, and it makes you want to wear overalls because you're just so over it. You want the song to be center stage and the music to be center stage, and sometimes it's really hard to achieve that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, here in Asheville, I don't feel that there's a tremendous bias. I mean, I think, on a person-to-person level, there's plenty of opportunities for women in music, and, I feel very supported by this community. But I have to agree with what Hannah says. I do think that in the larger picture, there is kind of an expectation of women to present themselves a certain way, and if you've kind of failed to meet those expectations, or if you don't look the part, or you're not kind of eye-catching enough, then it can definitely hurt your prospects of actually getting heard, which seems kind of ridiculous that but it is. I think that is true. I have found that to be true.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that as well. I feel like I'm always trying to balance. Yeah, I mean, you want to look professional, but I also try not to err on the side of, using, my looks as a way to get ahead in the music industry. Again, you want the music to be the main thing that speaks. And so I think that's kind of the balance of trying to stay authentic to that, but also trying to play the game to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, like, I don't know necessarily that I know how to play the game, so I get really stressed out sometimes. If I'm at like some big like conference or something and I'm looking around at the other women there and they're all like really well dressed and have their makeup on really well, and I'm like, I don't even really know how to do makeup. Like, I don't, I can wear eye stuff and lip stuff, but other than, like everything in between is a mystery to me. And there's been many times that I've literally just like had little minor meltdowns, just being like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'll never make it in this business because I don't know how to do makeup. And my hair is bad.
But that is definitely one aspect of I think trying to navigate the music industry as a woman. Something else that I wanted to mention about some of the challenges or my personal experiences with being a woman in music. I am a mother to a 3-year-old, and that's definitely a challenge to try to juggle family and music. And so, I think women are expected to kind of do it all, like, okay, do your career and your and be a mother and be a family person. So I think that's just another challenge that's been hard for me to kind of figure out how to do both well. You want to do what you do well, and yeah.
Even as a former teacher, I had to let go of that because that was not gonna the late night schedule of being a musician and the early morning schedule of being a teacher or being a mom, those do not work together. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the other questions that you had mentioned is why are there not more women in music? And I mean, I think that's one thing. Like, the schedule is really incompatible with preschool or childcare or anything. It's really hard to get work at night. I perform with my husband, and so we're always looking for childcare. Anybody want to watch our daughter on Saturday? By the way, have not found a babysitter yet. It's like calling my mother.
Talk to me afterwards.
Anyways, those kind of challenges. It makes it very difficult logistically to do that.
Well, a lot of times it's harder to get sort of recognition or to be accepted in the same way as your male counterparts on stage, like going to shows, doing sound checks, and so forth. Can you touch on that?
Oh, Amanda.
Yeah. I was just, I without naming anybody in specific, I mean, nobody in this town anyway, but yeah, I mean, I tour a lot with my band, and everybody else in my band is male, and I've definitely noticed that when we show up at a venue to sound check, there's usually a bit of a talking over my head, like, oh, we'll get to you, sweetie. Like, let the boys kind of plug their instruments in, and we'll figure out what we need to do, and then we'll get your voice in the monitor, and it's like, I'm perfectly capable of walking in and telling them what everything we need is and how we need it. I don't, because I'm lazy sometimes, but I can, and it's really frustrating to just feel like you're being excluded from a conversation because there's some sort of assumption that because you're the girl in the band, I have another friend in town who's a woman in an otherwise all man band, all male band, and she has told me stories as well of like, just being kind of looked over at soundcheck when they're passing out bracelets, to the for the drinks or whatever, they'll ask her like, are you actually in the band or are you just like here with the band?
Are you a girlfriend?
Right. Are you a girlfriend? And it, and then she gets on stage and blows everyone away and it's like, oh, right. Sorry. But it's, there's kind of this assumption when you show up somewhere.
Or an assumption that you're not the business manager in the band too. Like, going to the guys with the checks at the end of the night and you're like, whoa, okay, just let's start from scratch, and you just try to be as kind and as firm as you can, saying like, you're dealing with me, I'm in charge. Right. But the people that I've played with, the other musicians, drummers, bass players, pedal steel players, like they've all been awesome. It's usually venue owners that I run into have just sort of maybe a older mindset about the role of women, and it can be a little wearisome.
Yeah.
But I do think it's great. I feel like there's a lot more women involved in venues. Like a lot of the people that we've been working with lately for booking have been women, and there's a lot of publicists. I do feel like there's a better representation of women in the music industry. I do wish there were more women as like engineers and producers. Like my husband and I were just talking yesterday about a producer for our next album, and I was like, what women, could we get to produce this album? And we were like, Alison Brown, and I was like, okay, I can't even really think of anybody
Yeah,
else.
there's a big article that just came out in Capital at Play, I think, and it's all the local recording studios. There's not one female engineer in the article that I could see. And but I am starting to see more sound technicians and sound
Amanda
engineers.
has produced Taylor Martin, the new
Yeah,
record.
that's right.
Oh,
Here's
cool.
our
There's our
producer.
producer
Yeah.
sitting right here.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, no, but it is. It's not the first thing that you think of. I think even, and I tend to, even as a woman in music, and as somebody who's produced an album and produced my own albums,
Right.
I tend to not think of women when I think of producers. It's kind of how we're, I don't know, kind of how we're set up, I guess.
Socialized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's how we're socialized.
Yeah, I think that is one of the problems of like why we're not seeing a lot more women in music is when you are a little girl. Kids now, they grow up with the new Star Wars girl, the new Star Wars hero who's not wearing a bikini, but like we grew up with Princess Leia. And then we see kind of the same thing in music of like kind of a highly sexualized female musician or female artist, and you don't see women shredding on guitar. I didn't growing up,
Role models,
or taking solos on bluegrass songs, and now that's really starting to change. Like looking at Molly Tuttle or someone like that, or watching Susan Tedeschi, or what's the girl
Grace
from Big
Potter.
Thief?
I don't know.
I love her. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. But man, those women can play. And I even now going to those shows, watching a woman just display a sheer incredible virtuosity, you feel like crying because you didn't have those role models. That's how I feel about it. And I get so excited for the next generation.
Yeah, I just spent a week at the International Bluegrass Conference in Raleigh, and there is some amazing young women. It's just incredible. I mean, just picking in the hallways and on stage. They have a great youth stage there, and they did a special First Ladies of Bluegrass showcase on Friday night with there's finally now been female winners in all the instrumental categories at IBMA, which is a big deal just in the last couple of
That's a really
years.
big deal.
So they had Molly Tuttle and Becky Bowler and Alison Brown and Sierra Hull and Missy Raines. So it was a great, inspiring thing. So the times are changing.
As far as the next generation, there are a lot of educational programs out there, especially for the root style and mountain styles of music. You've got your young Appalachian musicians, a lot of school-based organizations that are doing outreach for kids of all ages, starting them really young. And I imagine that is much more inclusive of girls nowadays.
Absolutely, yeah. The jam programs, and a lot of my young fiddle students are girls, and so yeah. I mean, it's definitely there's a lot of young people out there that are doing this. I think there's rock camps. I think in Asheville.
Yeah.
Girls Rock
Girls
Asheville
Rock, yeah.
is one of
But
the...
at the same time, these are not well represented. At least women, I don't think, are still underrepresented in the pop world, in the top, commercial country acts, rock and roll, etc. They're proportionally far fewer, I think.
That's interesting to hear, because I feel like, especially in the pop world, I feel like there are some huge female icons, So in the pop world, I always tend to think women dominate, but I guess maybe that's not true. I don't know.
I should have had some statistics handy, but
I'm like
going with
Lady.
the
I feel like
assumption.
Lady Gaga is like ruling the world right now, which I'm fine with, by the way. I
Beyonce.
tip my hat to her. I think she's incredible.
to answer one of your
Yeah,
questions,
Beyonce.
just about, as my parents didn't want to steer me in the direction of entertainment industry because they,
Why not?
Tell.
they were like, you're going to college, you're going to get scholarships, you're going to be a professional, you're never going to have to depend on your looks or your talent. You'll be able to depend on hard work, which being a musician is about a ton of hard work, but that's not really how it's perceived. And I don't think that, that's just me, but individually, my parents wanted to push me to be like an engineer or a nurse or something that was not going to depend on the ebb and flow of the entertainment industry.
We're here on Southern Songs and Stories live on IamAVL, broadcasting from downtown Asheville, North Carolina at the IamAVL offices in Echo Mountain. I'm Joe Kendrick, your host. We're going to go to a quick musical break with this one from Amanda Platt and the Honeycutters and a bit of Long Ride. We'll be back in a minute.
Feet up on the dash. The stars were shining, we were high as hell. We were dying, but you couldn't tell. If you only would have dreamed the same dream too, maybe then you wouldn't worry what we're coming to. So come on, baby, roll the windows down. Think about all of the good friends you have found. When you're gone, they're gonna drink to you. Raise their voices up and sing for you. Say your life has been a study of goodbye. Oh, but honey, can't you feel your hand in mine? You're afraid of the pavement and before sunrise, but it was only ever light bending behind your eyes. It was only a dream you had to believe, so you could keep between the lines. This is good night, not goodbye. We're in it for the long ride. When we meet up in the sky so blue, will you remember I was kind to you? Will you remember all the times I let you down? You admit it doesn't really matter now, if life is just a study of goodbye. Tell me, honey, what we're doing here tonight. You're afraid of the pavement and before sunrise, but it was only ever light bending behind your eyes. It was only a dream you had to believe, so you could keep between the lines. This is good night, not goodbye. We're in it for the long ride. You're afraid of the pavement and before sunrise.
Hey, I'm Joe Kendrick, and you're in tune with Southern Songs and Stories, a very special episode thanks to IamAVL, and we're here in downtown Asheville at IamAVL offices in Echo Mountain, and talking with some women from our regional roots music scenes. I want to talk about the sort of attitude of artists like a Loretta Lynn or a Lydia Lovelace, and ask you to tell what is going on either in your music or in somebody else's music in the scene here. Do you get that sort of attitude or the lyrical content and that sort of thing? It does. I don't want to say it seems like a tame bunch, because it's not, but where is it in right where we're at?
I mean, it's a thought-provoking question, and I'll be honest, it's not something I've thought that much about. I mean, I personally, just in my own little world of songwriting, I have difficulty writing when I'm angry. So I personally don't approach, I may notice things that I'm not happy with, and I certainly have, political views, and there are things that I feel like I want to say, but I don't feel as inspired to put them into my art, which seems like maybe backwards. I don't know. I mean, so many amazing artists have used, that as fuel and inspiration, and made incredible songs and albums and paintings and all. But I do think that maybe there's a gap right now for somebody to step into, who has something to say about the gender issues and really.
I mean, there's a lot of songs in old time and bluegrass traditions where the woman is getting there's violence against murdered a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
out there.
Bluegrass tradition does not bat an eye. It coming out of the ballads from Scotland and the UK, like those ballads are telling the truth about male-female relationships and how bad things can get when the power is really imbalanced. And I think that's one way our region does address that is we have a really rich tradition in that kind of music. And but I don't know that we have anyone who I would identify as
Riot girls.
Yeah, I think that
there's
quiet
no such thing.
There's quiet revolutionaries like Alex Krug is someone who is saying like I'm not gonna do this red lipstick, heels and a skirt to get booked. Like I'm gonna do things my way. And she's been super encouraging to me. She's literally said the words, you are enough. You don't have to mold yourself into something in order to be a musician. And I would say lyric too, like she sings a lot of songs that have historical import that, are so relevant today, related to civil rights and just Black Lives Matter. And I really admire what she's doing. I think we have a DIY culture around here with women in music, and we sometimes it feels like the most revolutionary thing you can do is own it. Own, like, yes, I'm a woman in music. I run this as a business. I advocate for myself, and it doesn't always come out in the lyrics.
I agree. Oh, sorry, go.
That's okay.
I was going to say I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I think that when if somebody were to set out to kind of give themselves that reputation and really like show up in that way constantly, consistently, and just be like, I'm, this is what I'm about. This is what I have to say. And, I think that the Riot Girl movement certainly became very combative, which is a good thing and needed to happen and had a lot of followers, but it kind of pigeonholes it a little bit, whereas I think that to really kind of get things evened out a little bit more, I do think, like Hannah was saying, one of the best things that women can do is to just keep showing up and being true to themselves and the music that they make, whether they are, there is a powerful social message to the music or not. I think it's important, it's almost like, with all the politics going on now, it's like, you can put out angry rants on Facebook or whatever. You're kind of preaching to the choir because people that don't agree with you are going to demonize you for not agreeing with you, and so it's almost like your voice, by polarizing yourself, you're almost like negating your voice.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that, and I think that I choose to not get engaged with political stuff on Facebook. I mean, I'll share things that I think are important, but I don't generally engage in political arguments or rants because it doesn't seem very effective to me. I'd rather sit down and talk to somebody in person.
It doesn't seem effective.
And I also, and I do think music can be a powerful tool. I do think there's actually been a lot of songs recently with the political climate. There's been a lot of kind of civil rights songs to come up, and we do. John wrote, when he was feeling angry one day, he wrote an environmental song, called "Who's Looking Out for You and Me," and so like we do, and we just sang a song this weekend called "I'm Your Neighbor." That's kind of about the immigrant experience and the gay and lesbian experience, and so I think that it's important to. There is a lot of political action going on. It may not be quite as riotous or loud, but it's it's, I think it's there for sure. I mean, at the Bluegrass conference, there was a diversity and inclusion showcase in concert that highlighted gay bluegrass musicians, which that's a new thing in the bluegrass community, to be open and welcoming of that. So there's I think that it's out there. It's maybe just not
I did want to mention Ellie Grace. She is a songwriter from here who definitely, she and Brian Claflin have definitely been writing some songs that would kind of be in this category. But she's amazing. She moved to Missouri, but she's kind of based in this area on and off.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's impossible not to be affected by the daily news cycle, and being an artist and being creative and being open to all of what's going around you in the world has got to have a factor, even if the song is not overtly about current events. I imagine it would affect in some way the tone, perhaps, of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the things that I always respond to the most are like songs that have a message, but also that they have a hook, which is, it sounds so ridiculous to say that, it's like, it sounds like you're putting like pop music on a pedestal or something. But I think that, there are a lot of really intelligent, brilliant people out there that, write songs with the political message. But if it doesn't if the song isn't like catchy or doesn't stick with you, it almost gets lost.
Because sometimes it's not good art.
Right. That's, you can say something that's right and true, and it doesn't necessarily make it good art. And I don't know, I'm not, I don't think anybody is qualified to judge, it's kind of an individual experience, how anybody hears a particular song or a particular message. But, I definitely I'm waiting for that person who can, and it would be great if it was a woman, who comes out and really has. And maybe there's people already doing it. I live in a bubble. I'm certainly, like I said, not qualified to judge.
You guys play a number of politically progressive songs on WNCW. And,
That's true. Yeah, they're becoming more and more frequent.
Yes. Yeah, I think we'll see more and more.
I don't think it's going to
I
stop
thought
anytime
that
soon.
the Casey Musgraves song "Good Old Boys Club" was really good for this week.
I don't think I've heard that song.
I don't want to be a part of your good old boys club. Cigars and handshakes. Appreciate you, but no thanks.
Yeah.
I think there's so much. I actually really love that line. Appreciate you, but no thanks, because you do have a lot of pressure as a woman to kind of take care of people's feelings. I appreciate the offer that you're trying to get me to do this thing, but no thank you. There's a lot of that pressure. I was super inspired this week by Dr. Ford, and just how she was clearly emotionally affected, but she was very measured, and she never stepped away from her professional dignity as a psychologist. And just seeing a woman be under a whole lot of pressure and strain, and just have such a coherent and strong voice in the midst of vulnerability, I felt like, wow, she's like a rock star to me, creating space for that to be heard is exciting to me. I don't think that would have happened when we were younger. So
Yeah.
now let's do something about it.
Yeah, it's
Let's
definitely a remarkable time for women, and there's just, it seems like every day there's stories coming out about past abuses, current abuses, inequality, and it's hard. It can feel like a barrage, it can feel like there's so much going on, and there's so much that we don't know what the truth is, because there's, especially with a lot of these sexual abuse cases, it's like, and I'm not even citing the whole Kavanaugh thing right now, I'm just, in general, I'm saying that, if it was a long time ago and there's no physical evidence, it does kind of become one person's word against another. But I think what's really important is that, for a long time, it was just assumed that the man was right, and so I think it's important that women are being listened to, because this is the kind of thing that happens. It's probably happened to all of us. It's probably happened to everyone we know, on some level. And it's just important that it's being talked about.
Right, and then maybe men will be more conscious. Maybe just to just that the slightest thing. Maybe just to be more conscientious about how they're speaking or acting, or
absolutely.
So that's a good thing.
Let's wrap up the show today by giving each of you a magic wand and asking what would be the one thing you would do with that in regards to helping improving women in the music scene, either right here where we're at and around Asheville, or in general.
really hard question.
That is a really tough question.
I'd probably want to make more engineers and more women in the industry, I guess.
Yeah, I would just want, also I think that there's this sort of unspoken thing that happens a lot where women are in competition with each other, and it's it almost seems like a divide and conquer kind of thing. I don't mean to sound paranoid, but it is like, I would love to see more community amongst women. And, I'm responsible for that too. As a woman in the music industry, I can reach out, I can build more community.
Well, and you do a really good job.
Well, thank
You did the
Hannah.
women
I
that
tried.
concert last year with the.
I
Yeah.
had nothing to do with organizing that, but I was there.
You were part of
I
it.
think that
Showed up.
I think that that's what I would say too, is just more collaboration and realizing there's space enough for all of us. There's tons of space that's left
So
to be
much space.
filled, and together building each other up and learning to work, in a what can be kind of a bro culture sometimes. Like, we're our best, each other's best allies,
Yeah.
and working together and learning to work with people from all backgrounds. I mean, that's kind of the vision of a generous Asheville music community, and I feel like we know pieces of it. Like, it's coming alive,
Yeah.
but it would be awesome to see that just sort of flourish, like the generosity and collaboration between everybody. Be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We'll
Hannah
make it
Kaminer,
happen, right?
Hannah Kaminer, Amanda Platt, Natalya
Thank you for
Weinstein.
having
It's great
us.
to see you all here on a special Southern Songs and Stories live from IamAVL. You can find out about us on our website, southernsongsandstories.com, as well as on podcast platforms and social media. I'm your host, Joe Kendrick. Thanks to Josh and Scott and Guy, and thank you for being here. We're going to go out with a little bit of music. This is Zoe and Cloyd. It's Natalya and her husband with Eyes Brand New.
Wondrously appearing from the places I can't see. Tender leaves, they flutter down, painting colors on the ground. Everything must change, it's beautiful and strange. My hands up to the clouds and I'm spinning round and round. Every little sound turns me around. Falling